For more than 2 decades, Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi has held leadership positions in the Democratic Party, and of course it had influence for even longer than that. But a new report out today in Axios says some Democratic colleagues of the former House Speaker are growing frustrated with her, especially over comments she made in the wake of Democrats' defeat in the latest election. Here with me now, New York Democrat Congressman Tom Suozzi. Thanks so much. Always good to talk to you.
Thank you, Jim.
You know, it strikes me that
Wait, let me just first say, I love Nancy Pelosi.
Fair enough. And I'm not going to get you to go after her personally. Basically, it seems the root of this criticism is Nancy Pelosi. And by the way, she's not alone in this, as you know, identified some mistakes Democrats made during this campaign. And one of which she says she wishes that Biden had gotten out of the race earlier to allow for perhaps a primary process. I just wonder, in your view, you know, is she just speaking the truth to her own team, in effect, here?
I mean, the bottom line is we don't need to look backwards. We need to look forward. Mm-hmm. And we need to get the Democrats as a whole, not any individual person, as a whole, to focus on the issues that Americans are talking about. Mm-hmm. And we can't be afraid to speak our minds because we're going to get lambasted by the far left of our party. And I think that happens in both parties. Republicans are afraid to talk about guns. Mm-hmm. They're afraid to criticize President Trump because they're going to get lambasted by the base. And the Democrats are reluctant to talk about hot-button issues because they're afraid they're going to get lambasted. And that's a problem. We have to be able to have conversations about these tough topics.
So to your point, I love how this last piece you wrote, not today's, I already read that too, but you said, remember, Donald Trump wants us to be demoralized. He wants to fuel conflict and outrage. He wants to push the boundaries as far as he can, not only to see what he can get away with, but to throw Congress and the country off balance or even into chaos to strengthen his own position. In his warped vision, he relies on the ruins of others. And that's where I think it starts with saying this is not a mandate. This is, right. 49, 50%. That's where it starts for them to make you feel demoralized, right? And defeated, and like you're the one that's out of touch and you're just overwhelmed, and they're the vast majority of people, disagree with you, right?
Right. And look, a win. In this case, a win is a win. We have to live with that. But let's not pretend that it's a mandate. Let's not pretend that it's a landslide. Let's not pretend that this is a normal administration that we should respond to normally. I think it's already worrisome that this early, 63 days before January 20th inauguration, that there's so many people who are already quickly rolling over, who already seem to be more concerned about trying to get along, trying to get access, trying to treat this guy like it's just a normal day in a democratic America.
I am wearing this wardrobe today in honor of Joe and Mika, who went to kiss the ring at Mar-a-Lago on Friday. To your point.
You're promising that after January 20th, your T-shirt will not say he's not that bad.
But to your point, Joyce Vance tweeted, Trump isn't even in office yet, and we're already talking about letting him bypass the Constitution as though that's a normal conversation to be having.
Right. And look, 63 days away. There's something that he did which is weirdly our benefit, which is that all of these reckless, dangerous selections for a cabinet and other so-called leadership positions, they're so egregious that they serve the purpose of exposing what his intentions are. And now we'll get to see very clearly what the Senate is made of. Do they actually treat their duty to advise and consent, to follow the Constitution with seriousness, or don't they? And if they don't, you know what? We need to know sooner rather than later.
You went down all of them. Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense. Not only did we find out he paid the woman off for this latest sexual assault allegation, but you said, did you know he championed service members who were accused of war crimes? Did you know he was asked to stand down from guarding President Biden in his inauguration because of his extremist religious tattoos? Tulsi Gabbard, you talk about, how many of our allies have already determined they can't trust their secrets with Trump and are reorganizing their intelligence operations to avoid relying on America. Who does that hurt? America. It hurts America. Yeah. You said not only is she ill-prepared and unqualified, but she traffics in conspiracy theories, cozies up to dictators like Assad and Putin. It is almost a script that would be rejected out here in Hollywood. Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. It's a lot of us really actually, even for Trump, thought this was a joke when we heard these nominations. Did you?
No, Matt Gaetz, I thought that one was a joke. I thought maybe even the new version of The Onion was trying to spoof us, right? But they are very. I mean, he's very serious. He's not hiding, and this intention to pursue retribution. Let's be clear. That's on the table.
Yeah.
It's not, and treat it accordingly. So.
Well, I thought you made such a smart point. I hadn't heard other people say. You said maybe Donald has finally found his Roy Cohn, minus the intelligence and the legal knowledge, but with the same level of ambition, immorality, and capacity for cruelty. And you said we can only hope the ethics report will be leaked or otherwise handed over to senators. I mean, obviously, some senators are demanding it or saying they're not going to vote for him. But we'll see how quickly the capitulation to Trump happens, because it usually happens on cue, right?
Right. And look, the thing about that ethics report, it provides evidence, but it's almost as if we don't really need more evidence to know how ill-suited, how unfit, how utterly inappropriate it is for a guy like that to end up in the job of the chief law enforcement for the entire country.
The girl's lawyer said she was in high school and there were witnesses. I mean, it's not like this stuff hasn't, already.
Right.
Anyway, okay. Bobby Kennedy, let's talk about this.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
I want to go back to sort of national security. I mean, one of the things that I made a point of doing in recent days was double checking to what extent Trump can dismantle NATO.
Yeah.
And our relationship with all of our Western allies. Well, obviously, he can undermine our aid and support for Ukraine. But one of the things is that there's a law that's been passed that 2/3 of the Congress have to pass any effort to try to dismantle NATO.
Okay.
So he won't have sort of the free rein to just do that if that's part of the plan.
And I wanted to get your take, since you brought up Ukraine. I'm glad that Biden is, sending the what do you call it, the weapons to Ukraine, because I think the other thing is, because of Republicans, he's been able to give Ukraine enough help to fight, but not enough to win. So, right. I mean, again, I don't know if it's going to matter if Trump just hands Ukraine to Putin, but,
Well, that seems pretty clear. I mean, that's obvious that he's going to do that he's going to demand that Zelensky goes to the negotiating table and begins, right away, giving away their sovereignty. I mean, that's the plan. And there's already been plenty of noise from the Republicans, like, of course, they should go along with that. By the way, including Elon Musk saying it's laughable that Zelensky would consider not going to the table, that he needs to listen to what he's being told.
And it's so sad to have to listen to Zelensky suck up to Trump, too, for obvious reasons, but, yes, his plan of peace through strength is exactly correct. It's like, yes, you get peace through giving, everything up to Putin's strength. And
look, we're going to have to watch. I think everybody in their engagements with him, when it is that they're sort of doing what a Zelensky does, which is, he's trying to get along for the survival of his country, versus, those who are sucking up because they want access, or because, they're ready to normalize him because they want to be in the orbit.
Yeah. Bobby Kennedy, you write, despite having no scientific or medical background, this man is driven by conspiracy theories, including vaccines called autism, without reliable evidence. He's already said he would push to remove fluoride from the water supply, despite the fact it's improved dental health. He's questioned vaccines for polio and measles. I mean, it really is quite extraordinary where we find ourselves. I mean, it is. I don't even. Oh, go ahead.
We're living in an upside down world. That's pretty clear. I think I posted something yesterday, which is like, can we remember how absurd this world is, that this man, he is an I mean, I don't have to go through the whole list, but he's somebody who is a depraved sociopath, and should never have been brought back anywhere close to the levers of power.
We just been talking about this all show, about relationships with friends or family that voted. To me, it's different. 2016, even 2020. I'm sorry. If you voted for him now, to me, you are despicable. And I cannot have a relationship with anybody that voted for this now. Again, my mom passed a year ago, and she had Alzheimer's, and she was 100. So it was a different.
She's forgiven. I mean,
Yeah,
and anybody, let's say anybody over 95 is forgiven. Shall we say that?
Yeah, there you go. They get a pass. But you just said, I worry for my country if any or all of these selections come to pass. You said, with terrible sycophants ready to swing the wrecking ball to American government, Americans will see clearly the awful consequences of this election. You just said this real life story is an opportunity for each of us to step up in whatever way we can to minimize the danger, beat back the horror, eventually emerge alive and triumphant. The need for media to highlight acts of opposition, not just at federal level, but throughout the country. You said people need hope. The media needs to serve this need. I agree. That's the point of fascism. Autocracy is for us to feel hopeless. And like there's no point in fighting anymore. And, I don't want to talk about politics anymore. And, I'm done. Right? That's exactly what they want.
Sure, and I'm sure you've dealt with what I have, which I've had an awful lot of people reach out to me and say, I'm done. I'm retiring from politics.
Yeah.
I can't deal with this. I've dealt with it for 8 years. I'm out. I completely understand that, and that's where I think there's a reckoning that should have happened. I wish it would still happen for the media and its failures in this period, but I also think that the opportunity is not simply to critique, but it's to spotlight those who are doing good work to respond. And I think, that is where people should be able to find hope. And, it's at a local level, it's community levels, it's at a state level. It's recognizing people like J.B. Pritzker, who talks about, if you're coming from my people, you come through me. I mean, work that's already going on in a lot of places to try to resist what seems to be inevitable. All those things are really important.
This is, Stephen, this is a cruel reality host that we put back in the present. These mass deportations are going to be big and cruel and dumb and televised to throw red meat to their Fox audience. Here, the thing about you being a political journalist, though, is your point is well taken. The pendulum always swings. It's going to swing back. He did not win a majority. He won a little over 30% of the country is who voted for him. And, I think, unfortunately, people are going to find out in record time. I mean,
the majority did not vote for him. Can we say that, over and over?
Yeah.
I mean, the misfortune is that most people did not vote once again. So it's that tyrannizing minority that did the dirty work here.
I wanted to get your take, one last thread from Kevin. Many of the people who will claim in the coming months and years they didn't know he would do such terrible things did know. They knew and they wanted it. They got a thrill from the idea of hurting and dominating people, which is why they supported him. They won't want to take back the responsibility for it, though, when things get really dark. They won't want to be cut off or unwelcome in polite company, so they'll say, this isn't my fault. I didn't know. Echoes of somewhere in the 1930s, I wonder.
Yeah, well, this is the problem. We have a public that doesn't study history. We have a public and generations that haven't studied civics. They don't know the basics of democracy. They have lost touch with the value of democracy and self-governance. It's part of why we're here. And the data in terms of this election has already communicated that those who actually possessed knowledge, who engaged with political news, with facts, they were more likely, and by 8 percentage points, to vote for Kamala Harris. Those who had little or none, it was as much as 19%. They went for Trump. So it's clear that the more people are engaged with factual reality and have an opportunity to know a little bit about sort of civics and about their history, there might have been more second guessing about it. And this to me defines sort of what our work is in these coming years to break through the information bubble, the ecosystems that have severed people off from
disinformation.
contact.
This is what Alan Lichtman, who's been right about every single election. The reason he was wrong this time, he said disinformation and people's tendency to believe these ridiculous lies. So thank you for your work. I keep saying, like, I've been mostly watching movies about women, snowmen. do whatever you need to do to disconnect.
Absolutely.
I go bike
Yeah,
riding for hours. Go
yeah.
do what you love with who you love. But stay in this fight with us, however you
Yeah,
can.
be in it for the long haul. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the thing. I mean, the outrages are going to come constantly. We can't be outraged at every single moment. That's a recipe for burnout.
Yeah.
The point is to find ways to maintain your mental health
Yeah.
and to stay involved. That's really the challenge.
In
And,
my case, appreciating how horribly bad the acting is in holiday rom-coms.
Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. I hope you'll join me on my new audio podcast, Justice Matters. I'll be using my 30 years as a federal prosecutor and Army JAG to unpack, break down, and explain the legal issues of the day, particularly where the legal intersects with the political. Please look for Justice Matters with Glenn Kirshner wherever you generally get your podcasts.